Hi, I'm Curtis Bunn, and welcome to CurtisBunn.com's one-on-one with Essence best-selling author, Curtis Bunn. Welcome, Curtis. Thanks for having me. You look good, man. Good to have you. Listen, there's a lot of buzz about your new novel, A Cold Piece of Work. Why do you think that is? I have no idea. I'm just kidding. Really, there's a buzz, I think, because the novel is the antithesis of what you generally see in a book about men and relationships. This is a book where the main character, Solomon Singletary, for public consumption, has his emotions, his feelings, his vulnerabilities, his flaws, his pain exposed for everyone to see. And we know that that's not a comfortable place for men. But I believe in full disclosure, and I believe in particularly writing about stories and subject matters that enlighten people, enlighten readers. And we know women are the predominant readers, and they want to know what's going on in the mind of a man. And so here's a character who is flawed, who has vulnerabilities, who rather leave women than love them, or leave them after loving them, as opposed to staying there with the idea that they may leave him first because he had bad experiences. There's this general idea about men that really concerns me, and that idea is that all men are dogs. And while many of them may be, some of them, okay, maybe or even all of them, but I don't think men are actually born that way. In some cases, it's in our DNA, but in most cases, because you never know, because a man won't express that he's been hurt before. And having been hurt before, it limits you. It makes you scared. It makes you vulnerable. And in some cases, I think, as a protective measure, men prevent getting close to women so that they can protect themselves. And Solomon Singletary took it to heart. He was a good guy when he was young. Got burned a couple times and decided that he'd do the burning in the future. So tell me, how did you come up with the title, A Cold Piece of Work? We know how important titles are to books, and I've heard the phrase, you're a piece of work, but how did you come up with a cold piece of work? You know, I have a good friend, my closest friend, Trevor Nigel Lawrence, lives in Oakland, California, real clever guy, has a real command of the language, even though he's from South America. And we talk almost every day about something. And more than a year ago, when I was kind of conceptualizing the book in my head, we were talking, and I told him about somebody's, scandalous behavior. And he said, oh, that person is a cold piece of work. And that phrase stuck with me. I was like, that's an interesting way to put it. He's good with language. And I said, I like that. And it stuck with me. And so when I started really conceptualizing the book and then writing it, it made me stick to that storyline, because I said, this is going to be the title. And this guy has his flaws, and it has turned him this particular way, this cold way, almost soulless way. And I like that. I like it. And I thought it worked. It fit perfectly with the book. So, you're a decorated sports writer. Why is it that you have not written a book about sports? I know better than anyone, of course, that you've traveled the world, won awards, you're very well versed in sports, you love it, you played it. Why not write a book about sports? Well, I do know sports. I was an athlete, still consider myself somewhat of an athlete, although I'm limited to golf now, or I've limited myself to golf now. If I wanted to play ball or whatever, I could still do it. Probably end up in the hospital a little bit later, but I could still go out there. But I'm really surprised you asked that question. I thought a little bit more of you, because that's a question that I get a lot, you knowing me as you do. But although I had this passion for sports that really was generated in me by my late father, Edward Bunn, and it passed on to me and my brother Billy, my brother Eddie, my sister Tammy, my kids, everyone in the family. We're big, huge Redskin fans. I live life more than I play sports, read about sports, traveled and wrote about sports. And I have relationships every day that I deal with people. And I believe I'm more astute about people and relationships, and particularly men, than I am about sports. And so it's actually more natural for me to write about relationships. I have had opportunities to write about sports. When I worked in New York, a couple of New York Knicks had book interest that they wanted me to write their books, and even Dominique Wilkins, the Hall of Famer, and I teamed up to start working on a book a few years back. It didn't quite materialize as of yet, but I love writing about people and psyche, and particularly men, and how we relate to women. That's more natural to me than anything else. So growing up, did you ever want to be an author? I know you wanted to be an athlete, but did you ever think about being an author? No, I didn't. I'm proud to say I'm from Southeast Washington, D.C., graduate of Ballou High School, and like all kids growing up at that time, I wanted to be an athlete. I was a pretty good basketball player, a good football player. Didn't play in high school, but very talented in everything I did athletically, actually. And my aspirations were to play pro sports. Um, but my mother and father and my grandmother also always expressed the value of an education. And so that was always in my mind. And then my junior high English teacher, Mr. Overton, when I was 13 years old, said that maybe I ought to look into journalism because he really was impressed with my papers and projects. And so I went home that night and looked in the encyclopedia, and it said, you might remember this, some journalists make up to $500 a week. And for a 13-year-old, man, I was like, remember how that felt? I was like, man, maybe this is what I ought to do. And I got into it in high school. I was the editor of the high school paper in the 11th grade and studied journalism at the Penn Center, a career development center, as a senior in the morning and Ballou in the afternoons. And I was hooked. I knew what I wanted to do when I was 13 years old. And so books never even entered my mind. Not until 1992 on the beach in Hawaii, reading Waiting to Excel by Terry McMillan. Really enjoyed the book, but it made me feel like I can do this. I can write about how men think in relationships and the struggles that men may have with women. And of course, I didn't act on it for years and years and years, but that's where the initial impetus for writing a novel came, 1992. And so in college, no idea about writing books while you were there studying journalism? Always just newspapers? No, I just told you, it came in 92. I graduated from Norfolk State in 83. You don't remember that? But you know what Norfolk State did for me? It prepared me for life. In a roundabout way, it did prepare me to write novels because I have lifelong friends that I met there that really have impacted me, that I travel with now and see almost sometimes weekly and certainly talk to weekly, and we do trips together, and it's been a very meaningful experience for me. And I trust and love Norfolk State so much that when my son decided he wanted to go there, I was all for it because I knew what it meant to me. I knew that the nurturing necessary would be there for him. And my daughter, who ended up going to Berklee College of Music in Boston, but if she didn't go to Berklee, she wanted to go to Norfolk State as well. I used to take her to homecomings, of course, and she loved it. And when Curtis was in school there, I would drop her off with him at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and see her again at 2 a.m. That's how much he would hang with her and expose her to everything down there. And so there's a great deal of love and respect and admiration and appreciation for Norfolk State. But no, I didn't think about writing books in college. Anyone who has read your novels, I'm sure, wants to know this question. Why does passion play such a prominent role in your work? I like the way you put that. That's a good way to put it. I guess you're a pretty smart guy. Because it's not just sex, it's passion. I'm a romantic. I've never met a woman more in tune to being romantic than I am. And I think being romantic is all about being inspired by that person to pay attention, to care, and to act on those inspirations. That's all it is. And it's not big things necessarily, small things as well. But it's really about being in tune with that person and paying attention and then caring enough to execute from off of your inspirations. But in my books, passion matters because that's what matters in relationships. That's it. When we meet and we interact with women and vice versa, the ultimate payoff, for lack of a better expression, at the end of all of that is intimacy. That's the expression of how you feel about someone. And so I don't have gratuitous sex in my books necessarily. I have passionate scenes where people are really truly expressing themselves, how they feel about each other, in most cases. And one of the favorite parts of the book for me was writing a chapter where Michelle Williams, who's one of the female main characters in the book, talks to her book club members in a meeting one day about why she was so upbeat and smiling, and there was a different gait to her. She walked differently. Her members noticed over the previous few weeks. And she just opened up. She was very much a private person, but she opened up and told them that she had been having consistent passion in her life and how much it changed how she looked at herself, how she felt about herself, how she felt emotionally, spiritually, how uplifted she felt. And it was a state of being, not just a moment. Once it was over, it still resided in her past that actual act of passion and intimacy. And I think that spoke to what it really means to all of us when it's good. So we could cover so much ground today, but we're going to save the rest of it for part 2 of this interview that'll come later this year. I'll just end simply with this. What's next for you? A lot. Definitely a lot. The Cold Piece of Work drops July 5th, and I can't tell you how excited I am about that. There've already been hundreds and hundreds of pre-orders on Amazon.com. I'm really excited about that. I appreciate that support. I'm working on a book right now. I'm ghostwriting a book for a prominent movie character, a book on leadership that's really, really good. We're right now about 40% done. It's going to be a great book, a great read. The movie based on this person was extraordinary as well. And so I'm excited about that. That'll be released later this year. My conference, the National Book Club Conference, is coming up July 29th through the 31st at the Hyatt, of course. And that's always a huge weekend for me. This is the 9th year. So excited. Great readers, great authors coming together, convening and talking about books and discovering each other. And I have some other book ideas that I'm working on. Some really exciting novels that are really going to touch everyone. That everyone's going to be able to relate to and want to be a part of in terms of reading and sharing with others. And in fact, there are 2 or 3 other book ideas. I almost want to write 2 or 3 books at one time. That's how excited I am about all of these projects. So it's busy, as always. I'm teaching at Morehouse College, journalism there. Hanging with my daughter, Gwen Bunn, the unbelievable artist, Gwen Bunn, GwenBunn.com. I'm really proud of her. My son, I don't get to see enough. I'm really proud of him. He's doing unbelievably in Washington, D.C. So try to get up there to see him more, get him here. And my family, of course. Family is everything. And golf. Golf. That's enough. More than enough, in fact. With that, we'll end it. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support, right? He's the man. You are too, man. Thank you. Stay in touch.